Daisy, thank you very much indeed for that kind introduction, and thank you to Bay Cities for inviting me to speak to you again. I'm here to address what challenges might threaten London's resilience now and in the future, and how our great city must adapt and realise these opportunities. So I want to focus on the joint threats of the unaffordability of housing and the high cost of living, and the need for our transport infrastructure to keep pace with the dramatic increase in the size of London's population and the consequent threat to London's place as a global city. And I do think that there is a particular call here on responsible politics which plans for the long term. But first of all, let me begin with how London has shown resilience throughout the history, because London's past has shaped London now. Our city started as a bridge in AD 47, rapidly became a port, and subsequently a bustling town with citizens from across the Roman Empire, from the Persian Gulf to our neighbours, the Gauls. And we've incorporated successive waves of migrants since. The Jews in the 13th century, the Flemish in the 14th, the Italians in the 15th, the French Huguenots in the 17th, and so on until citizens from our former colonies arrived from the Second World War onwards. So throughout our history, London has been by location and culture blessed with the elements of infrastructure, from the natural infrastructure of our river, which was until recently the main thoroughfare in London, to the cultural legacy of our national galleries, built with the endowment of Queen Victoria's reign for the enlightenment of the British people, to the physical infrastructure of Sir Joseph Bazalgette's sewers in the 19th century. So London has, over its history, adapted, innovated, and integrated. So let me just deal briefly, all too briefly, with what I think are the key threats to London's resilience. The first, I've referred to housing and the cost of living. The cost of housing continues to spiral, forcing businesses to relocate, pricing Londoners out of the city, and hampering our ability to respond effectively. And this is a real risk to the awful prospect of a further terrorist attack. Businesses are already citing housing costs as one of the most pressing concerns for their companies. Over 40% of London Chamber of Commerce members believe that higher housing costs are having a detrimental effect on their ability to recruit and retain staff. Average London house prices grew by 17% in last year alone and now stand at just short of £500,000. And we all know that the biggest reason is lack of supply. We'll need 800,000 new homes by 2021, but as of now, we're only building 20,000 a year. The housing crisis isn't just a threat to economic growth or the life chances of Londoners, but it also has the potential to impact on whether London will be able to cope in the instance of major infrastructure failure, such as a power outage or terrorist attack. For example, around half of the Met live outside London, and many key workers in blue light services inevitably find it difficult to get into the capital in the event of a major incident. It therefore makes sense that housing should be regarded as critical infrastructure, and I hope the Mayor will include consideration of housing-related pressures when he reviews the London Risk Register. Alongside housing, the cost of living, cited by members of London First as one of the main barriers to hiring the workforce that they need. Nearly 6 out of 10 London-based businesses are experiencing pressure to increase wages simply to enable their employees to meet the higher housing costs that they face. So the cost of living is compounded by the costs of a low-skilled population, 33% of London's workforce not qualified beyond GCSE, and 9% having no qualifications at all. 16% of all London's jobs pay less than the London living wage. And in 2012, the unemployment rate in London was 31%, similar levels to cities such as Blackpool. So if we fail to ensure a decent supply of affordable housing in both the private and the public sectors, we fail to ensure people's earnings, keep track of costs, and suddenly London may not look the attractive place to live, work, and play after all. So what are the potential policy solutions? The first, enabling London's local authorities and housing associations to provide more affordable homes by removing the borrowing cap on local authorities' housing revenue accounts. A second, the availability of land, 3,700 hectares of brownfield land within Greater London, and as many as 210,000 possible homes with unimplemented planning permissions. So London simply cannot function as a city if the people that we need to service our city cannot afford to live here. Very quickly, moving to the second threat, London's transport infrastructure. It's predicted there'll be more than 4 million more trips per day by 2023 on London's transport infrastructure. By the end of 2018, Crossrail will add 10% to the network, but London will never see most of its benefits or those from any other current improvements, as the extra capacity that this infrastructure provides will be taken up almost immediately by increased demand. Demand will outstrip supply, equivalent to almost 40,000 passengers every day being prevented from entering London in the rush hour. So that's one of the many reasons why I support Crossrail too. And if the line were to be agreed soon, it could be open just before 2030. It's also clear that there's a need for more river crossing in the east of London. There are 3 road crossings east of Tower Bridge compared to 16 crossings at the equivalent distance to the west. And finally, we need to consider new approaches, for example, a step change in cycling provision and unpicking the commuting patterns that see. The third threat, according to Deloitte's research, its status could quickly be challenged if the delicate reputational balance is undermined. For example, over 40% of companies believe there are not enough people with high-level specialist skills, and nearly 40% of companies are concerned about the quality of basic education. London has also scored poorly in PwC's Good Growth for Cities Index in 2013 on work-life balance, inequality and unemployment. So London needs to continue to grow, but if it is to remain globally competitive, we need to look at good growth. As Bobby Kennedy memorably said, GDP measures everything except that which is worthwhile. Local economic development needs to take account of more holistic measures, understanding the wider impacts that are associated with economic success in our city. Businesses, they're looking to locate in cities that are good places to live, where their children will go to good schools, where there will be attractive offers for leisure, where they will have future and decent job opportunities. So employee loyalty and productivity depends on all these more holistic factors. So when we consider London's economic resilience, let's not just focus on infrastructure, but also ask whether public services suit the demand of modern life, support their workers. I'd like just to finish with reference to what I describe as London's cultural resilience, and it's what has made London great for centuries. We are an empathetic city, and our greatest moments are invariably described in the relationships that people encounter in the course of that. The spirit of the Blitz, the games makers during the 2012 Olympic and Paralympic Games. And as the minister who was responsible for arranging all the kind of support and logistical help for those who were bereaved or who survived the 7/7 bomb attacks, I can tell you that the stories that those families tell and those survivors tell were stories of the relationships they had with the people who were on hand immediately to help or hinder their adaptation to the horror that had befallen them. That is particularly important as we come up to the 9th anniversary of the bombing of London on the 7th of July. But let me just also say this, that the resilience of Londoners and the resilience of London also meant that in the aftermath of the bombing, there was not a single reported attack on a Muslim citizen of London. So London's cultural resilience is one of empathy and humanity, a common thread which runs through so much of London's history and the foundation of what will continue to make our city great. So that takes me back to where I started. London has always been a dynamic centre, open to the world, and I think it's very important to respect and protect our history and the city that we are today, and not to allow somehow the fact that our diversity, our openness and our tolerance is somehow the enjoyment of an elite. It is the city that we are. The risk to our city is that we become two cities, separated by wealth and the inequality of poverty, both of opportunity and wealth. But there are big challenges in this, as the other speakers, Fiona particularly, I think, reflected. So much of these big decisions about London's future and mitigating these risks rely on politicians having the courage, having the shared vision and commitment to London, which enables decisions to be taken for the long term. And so one of the great threats to London is the failure, the potential failure of politics and politicians to step up to that challenge, to plan London and make decisions for the long term, not decisions which are unpicked in the heat of a general or other election campaign. That's a big challenge to all of us of my proud profession. Thank you.